All right, let's open up the Economist's Toolkit. Today, we're going to get behind all those numbers you see in the headlines and show you exactly how the pros figure out what's going on with the economy. And by the end of this, you're going to have a seriously powerful new set of tools to make sense of the world.
It's a fantastic question, isn't it? Yeah, you see these numbers everywhere, 3% inflation here or 2% growth there, and they shape huge decisions. But where do they actually come from? They don't just fall out of the sky. There are specific calculations behind them, and today we're going to pull back the curtain.
So here's the game plan. We'll start with one universal tool that's used for everything. Then we'll look at how to measure economic reactions, how to size up the entire economy, and how to make sense of global numbers. And then we'll put our whole new toolkit to work. Okay, first up, let's grab the most important tool in the whole box. I kind of think of it as the percentage change wrench, because you can use it on pretty much everything to tighten your grasp on what's really happening. It is absolutely essential. So what is it? Look, all it is a way to talk about change in a standardized way. Whether you're talking about the economy growing, prices going up, or the value of a currency shifting, this is the calculation that gets you that nice, clean number. It's basically the language of economic change.
And this is the magic formula behind it all. Well, it's not really magic. It looks super simple, and honestly, it is. You just take the new number, subtract the old one, divide that by the original old number, and then times it by 100 to get your percentage. That's it. This one formula unlocks so much.
Let's put this thing to work. Say a country's entire economic output, its GDP, goes from $500 billion up to $550 billion. You pop those numbers into our formula, and out comes a 10% growth rate. That's it. Simple, right? But so powerful. Now you know how they do it. All right, the next tool we're pulling out is what I call the responsiveness gauge. This is cool because it doesn't just tell us that something changed, it tells us how much it changed because of something else. This is where we get into the really interesting stuff, cause and effect. The big idea here is something called elasticity. All it means is sensitivity. Think about it like this. If your favorite coffee shop jacks up its prices, elasticity tells us how you're going to react. Are you going to buy a little less coffee, or are you going to stop going altogether? That's the crucial question elasticity answers. Now, elasticity isn't just one thing. There are 4 main flavors, and each one gives us a different piece of the puzzle. You've got ones that measure how we react to price changes, another for how we react to changes in our income, and even one that tells us if 2 products are rivals, like Coke and Pepsi. Okay, let's run a quick example so this really sinks in. Let's say a price goes up by 5%, and because of that, demand for the product drops by 10%. All you do is divide that 10% drop by the 5% hike. We get -2. And since that number, ignoring the minus sign, is bigger than 1, we say the demand is elastic. It just means people are really sensitive to that price change. Okay, so we've got tools for change and for reactions. Now let's get the tools for measuring the whole shebang, the entire economy. You can think of these as our economic scales, for weighing a country's total output and its general price level. The 2 big ones you always hear about are GDP and CPI. GDP is that giant number that represents the value of absolutely everything produced in a country. And CPI, the Consumer Price Index, well, that's like sending someone to a supermarket every month with the exact same shopping list and just seeing how much the bill changes. It's how we track the cost of living. And check this out. This is how we get that inflation number you see on the news. You see that formula? It's our old friend, the percentage change formula, making another appearance. You just apply it to the CPI. If the price index goes from 110 to 121, you run the calculation and boom, 10% inflation. No magic, just math. Now, here's a tool you don't really calculate yourself, but you absolutely need to know how to read it. It's the Gini coefficient, and it measures income inequality. Think of it as a scale from 0 to 1. 0 is perfect equality. Everybody earns the exact same. 1 is total inequality. One person has all the money. It's a super quick snapshot of how wealth is spread out. So everything we've talked about so far has been kind of focused on what's happening inside a country's borders. But we live in a global world, right? So let's add the global ledger to our kit so we can make sense of international trade and money flows. Okay, one of the most practical tools you can have is just simple currency conversion. Let's say $1 is worth 90 euro cents. You see something online that costs 180 euros. How much is that in dollars? All you have to do is take the 180 euros and divide it by the exchange rate, 0.90, and there you go. It's $200. Super useful. All right, balance of payments. I know, it sounds super intimidating, but trust me, the basic idea is dead simple. It's just a country's checkbook for the rest of the world. Money coming in, like from selling exports, is a credit. Money going out, like from buying imports, is a debit. That's it. It's just tracking the money flow.
Okay, we have officially loaded up our toolkit. We've got our wrench for percentage change, our gauge for reactions, our scales for the whole economy, and our global ledger. Now for the fun part. Let's use them all together to break down a real-world situation.
So, let's imagine this scenario. A country's currency suddenly drops in value by 10% compared to other currencies. Right off the bat, notice how we're talking about this. A 10% change. That's our first tool, right there in the description of the problem.
Okay, so what does that actually mean? Well, our exchange rate tool tells us that a weaker currency makes that country's stuff cheaper for everyone else to buy. That could mean they sell a lot more exports, which is usually great news for their local businesses and the economy as a whole.
But, and this is so important, there's always a flip side. That same 10% drop means that anything they buy from other countries is now 10% more expensive for their own citizens, and that can start pushing up the cost of living. In other words, it can fuel inflation. You see? One event creates these ripples, and you need all the tools to see the full picture.
And that's it. That's your Economist starter pack. In just a few minutes, we've covered the absolute essentials, from simple percentage change and elasticities to big-picture GDP and inflation, all the way to global tools like exchange rates. You now have the real, hands-on skills to look at the data and see the story it's telling.
So, the power is really in your hands now. The next time you see a headline about growth or trade, you won't just be a bystander. You'll have the toolkit to dig in, understand where that number came from, and figure out what it really means. The only question is, what part of the economy are you going to measure first?